Hey guys, it's Sienna. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about a subject that is hot these days. It is definitely a hot topic. Everyone is talking about the low birth rates in Korea, why Korean women are choosing not to have kids, why people in Korea aren't getting married, and they always want to weigh in their 2 cents. As a Korean woman, I thought it would be nice to talk about it from my own perspective. I know there's so many different information circling around, and I just wanted to talk about my own personal opinions on this matter because I do understand. I personally would also not want to get married in Korea, let alone having kids running around. As usual, I do have to preface this video by first disclaiming that I am not speaking for all Korean women alike. This is just my own personal opinion. I am one of many women out here. Every single person has different experiences and different views on life depending on how they've lived their life. To give you a very brief introduction and summary of my life, I was born in Korea and then I moved to Singapore when I was around 7 years old. I was homeschooled in Thailand and then I went to college in Canada. Also, important thing to know is that when I went to private school, I went to an international school, so my views are not Americanized. Like, I feel like, for me personally, and I feel like if you went to an international school, maybe you'd understand, I grew up with a lot of different ethnicities around me, so I feel like I'm more open to different cultures, and I feel like I have a harder time with the idea of settling down in one country because of my upbringing. It is hard for me to envision myself just settling down in one country, and I just wanted to put that out there because I do think that it is a very important factor in how I make decisions. Anyways, so let's get right into the video because I have a tendency to ramble on. As you know, Korea actually has one of the lowest birth rate in the world, and they say if this continues for the next couple of years, then we are doomed for an extension. If you Google Korea's low birth rate, then you're going to find the following information. The average number of babies a South Korean woman is expected to give birth to during her life fell to 0.72 from 0.78 in 2022. These levels are far below the 2.1 children needed to maintain a country's population at its current level. South Korea's fertility rate, already the world's lowest, continued its dramatic decline in 2023 as women concerned about their career advancement and the final cost of raising children. That's why a lot of women are deciding to delay childbirth or just choosing not to have babies. When you actually walk around the streets of Korea, there's so many couples and there's so many fun activities to do for couples. When my boyfriend comes to Korea to visit me, we just have so much fun here because there's never ending things to do and it's pretty affordable compared to Canada, which is where he's from, to go out to eat, to go to a cafe, to walk around. There's so many cute datesy places. But one thing that you'll realize is that there's not many children because there's not many kid-friendly places. And I think that is the first reason why, for me personally, I would not choose to have kids in Korea. I feel like motherhood itself is really hard because of society, because there's so much pressure on women to be a good mother and whatever motherhood means to different people. I feel like a lot of women aren't getting the support that they deserve. Moms can sometimes get a really bad reputation here in Korea. There's even a word for it called mamchung, and this is the same thing as Karens in the world, I guess, but more for moms, like mom Karens. And I understand if you are at a restaurant, there's a kid screaming, kicking, yelling, and the mom's just letting them do whatever and disrupting other people around them. I understand how in those situations, it can make other people feel uncomfortable. Like they think that they can kind of do whatever and get away with anything because basically they think that the world should revolve around them. And some moms can be very extra with it. There was a case not too long ago where a teacher actually chose to end her life because there was a lot of bullying from the parents of the students in her class. And mind you, these parents are pretty young. They're around, they're in their 30s, and it's very tragic what had happened. I also have a lot of friends of mine who are kindergarten teachers here, and oh my goodness, the things that some of the parents put them through is so crazy. I feel like at times they value their own kids so much that they fail to realize that the person that they're mistreating is also someone's valuable daughter or son. The reason why I'm talking about this is because I want to touch on that word 맘충. Unfortunately, because of so many parents or moms that are being too extra and are not really treating other people with respect as they go out into the world, there is quite a negative way of looking at moms here. I'm going to give you an example. So a few years ago, I had to babysit these two kids when I first came back to Korea. I love kids, so I was 100% down to go and watch a movie with them. So I went to the mall and we took a cab there. And as soon as I stepped into the cab, I had so many rude remarks made about me. And I stepped inside the cab, we were speaking in English, and the cab driver turns to me and he goes, "Oh wow, you must have married a very rich man for you to be able to teach your kids English and send them to international school." And I just kind of laughed it off because I didn't want to get into, a whole thing. Like, I didn't feel the need to explain myself in front of him. So I was like, haha, I just laughed it off. But he kept digging and he kept saying really out of pocket things. If I really was the mom, it would have made me feel really bad about myself. We got popcorn, went to the movie theater, we sat down. The kid that I was babysitting, he started to eat his popcorn as usual, as normal kids do. And there was a guy sitting next to them, and I remember he came with his girlfriend, and there's something about some men, they feel the need to act extra tough. And so he turns around to me and he's like, "아줌마." And I'm like, "아줌마? Like, first of all, you're older than me. Like, how dare you?" And he's like, "아줌마, tell your kid to shut up." And after I heard that, I was like, excuse me, I've never been mistreated like this in public where I didn't even do anything and that you're just like coming at me. So I was like, what? And I said, he's just eating popcorn and the movie hasn't even started. And he's like, well, he's like chewing too loud in my ear. I can't even focus. I'm like, focus on what? So that was absolutely crazy. And then I just remember the whole day feeling like I was not a woman, I wasn't a person, I was more of an inconvenience to society. And I realized that as parents, you have to be very careful and you have to really plan out your day because there's a lot of restaurants and cafes that are not kid friendly, so they wouldn't accept you if you have kids, because it's going to disrupt the other guests. Or I know my friend, she's a cafe owner, and she said that it's because sometimes when kids fall in a cafe, the moms have a tendency to like sue them and they just don't want to deal with that. So there was not a lot of places that we could go, so we just went to the food court in the mall and we were having burgers. Now let's talk about the education, because I'm sure that this topic will always come up when discussing what it's like to have kids in Korea. As you know, education in Korea is highly valuable and there's such importance around education. Starting from an early age of kindergarten, kids enroll in art classes, taekwondo classes, ballet. It's really fun at first, and then they go into math classes, English classes, Korean classes, reading classes. There's so many different hagwons you can go to. There's even coding classes, Lego classes. So I think that compared to other countries, classes like ballet, piano, those are really expensive. And I feel that only like the really well-off kids will have those one-on-one piano classes. But in Korea, it's really common for kids to be enrolled in classes like that, which I think is great. Like the exposure to education and self-development, I think that is really great here. There is a fine line between, oh, you should take advantage of all these classes that's pretty affordable, and they even provide pickup and drop-off services, and then going into being a tiger mom and only making them study and learn things and not giving them the time to go out with their friends and have fun and just be kids. There's just so many classes, sometimes even back to back until like 10 p.m., 11 p.m. for elementary school students even. Once you go into middle school, high school, the pressure gets more and more intense. There is an area here called Daechidong. If you are familiar with the K-drama Sky Castle, it is exactly like that. If not, it is actually worse in reality. I did hear, because I have friends that teach at Daechidong as well, and they say that Sky Castle is a more tamed down version of what really happens, and the pressure on kids to do well and study, and especially the more money you have, it gets more and more intense. And obviously, if you're a parent, you want your kids to have the best things. You want them to excel in school. You want them to have a good education. So that's why I think a lot of people are saying that it's actually really expensive to have kids in Korea. Online, they're always saying, oh, if you have kids in Korea, the government's gonna pay you this much and you're gonna get all these benefits. But the truth is, those benefits is not enough to sustain all your child's expenses. Especially now if you are also a worker and you want to continue work, or you have to work and both parents have to go to work. Who's going to look after the kids? Daycare is super expensive. That's definitely going to pile up over time. So sometimes what happens is that a lot of women do have to give up work. And I think this is a very tough subject that we don't really talk about often here. Some families still have very traditional values. And this is coming from like my friends' stories, because my friends are also either Korean American or they've become more globalized. And they say that there's like a kind of a negative like stereotype they have towards Korean women that have studied abroad for a long time, that maybe they are promiscuous, maybe they have too much experience, or maybe they have too much drive. Some parents will want a daughter-in-law who will just do whatever they tell them to, and will, you know, if they're Korean, then they think that they're most likely going to be accepting of these traditional values that they have. We should always, like, you know, pay them a visit, clean for them, cook for them, but also cook and clean for the husband as well. Like, I was talking to a friend recently, and she had recently broken up with her boyfriend because after they had met the parents actually told her they don't like the fact that she has her own business. They don't like how she is not willing to give that up for a more stable job, like maybe a hagwon teacher. It's like a known thing that if you lived abroad and you speak English, then if you have enough money, then you should go start your own tutoring education business, because that is stable and it's good income. I talked to a lot of people that are married. A lot of my friends are married, they're older, they have kids already. And if they are a stay-at-home mom, they sometimes feel criticized for being a stay-at-home mom, that maybe they don't do enough. So there is a bit of pressure in that. I think a lot of women lose themselves. They kind of lose their identities. Then there's also working moms that I talk to, and they feel a massive amount of guilt for not being able to be more present in their kids' life, which is totally valid, and they're just so exhausted. I feel like at companies as well, if you say that you are going to have kids soon, their first thought is, okay, I guess then she's not going to care about the company as much. I think my generation now is realizing more that our values should not be tied to the company's values. What we want to do in life should not be completely similar to your company's vision. Like, you should have your own vision and aspirations outside of your company, but it's so easy to get so warped up in all of that. I even had the experience when I was working a 9-to-5 that sometimes I would get asked, do you want to get married? What age do you want to get married? Not because that they were curious, but they were thinking if they need to find a replacement. And the older I get, the harder it is to find a 9-to-5 job, because they think that in your late 20s, you're probably thinking about maybe getting married, and you're just going to be busy and you're not going to be able to work and live in the company. Because mind you, there is practically no work-life balance in Korea. I'm sure that there are still some companies that have amazing benefits, but usually you work a 9-to-6, and then sometimes you do need to work overtime. So you're practically there like 12 hours a day. Obviously, as a mom, if you want to go to a parent-teacher meeting, or if you want to go to a concert, you have to ask for a day off, or you have to leave earlier. We say it's like 눈치 보여 in Korean, which basically means you're not doing anything wrong, but you feel like you're doing something wrong, and you constantly need to see first if the company's doing well, and you have to get the timing right. And they think that if you are a mom, then you might slack off, and even if you try your best, maybe you won't get that promotion. A lot of the people that I talk to, especially if they are a little bit more well off, their first thought is, I'm going to put them into an international school. I'm going to try hard to put them into a curriculum that is more inspired by like Western education, because they know that there's so much pressure in Korean public schools, which is very, very expensive. But even if you do send your kids to an international school or an English speaking school, then they also need money to pay for all the different extracurricular activities and hagwon so that they can keep up in their class and excel in that. So all of this means money. Okay, next I'm going to talk about something that is very personal to me, so you might not agree with me. For me, I noticed that Korea is a very materialistic society, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, there's a lot of countries that are built on that. Like, you need to spend money for the economy to have a good flow. But I realized that more than when I lived abroad in Canada, coming to Korea, even if you are like, hey, I'm only gonna get the necessities, I don't really care too much about designer bags, I don't care too much about all that makeup, I don't care too much about fancy cars. I feel like if you live here long enough, after a while, you're naturally going to start to seek these things. I am a Christian, I go to church, and I really try hard to not put my value in materialistic things. But even our pastor one time, he was saying that because he used to live in the States as well, and he thought that he was doing well, not really caring too much about materialistic things. But then he noticed that when he came to Korea, he started to care about all these different things as well. And then he had to constantly catch himself and say, hey, I should not put my value and my self-worth in these things. I live in a pretty trendy area in Seoul, and when I step out, there are so many fancy cars. But it's crazy because if you look it deeper into it, I heard that a lot of these cars are either rentals or they sacrifice living in a nice, decent house that they can't afford, and they would rather live in a smaller house and just buy a fancy car, which if that's something that you like, there's nothing wrong with that, obviously. But I just thought that was pretty crazy. So if I'm noticing that now as a 20-something-year-old, and I don't have much, but if I'm noticing that now, and I also am thinking about, you know, nice bags, nice clothes, nice houses, I'm thinking, how much more would I want as a mom here? Because there's so many temptations. There's always something new that's cool and fancy that really captures your eye. Post-birth care centers, I know they're highly praised, and I think they're amazing. So women in Korea, after they give birth, they usually go to a post-care birth center where they'll be cared for, because it allows the woman, it allows the mom to rest as well and take care of their bodies and allow time for them to heal. So they're gonna have people to look after the baby, and sometimes you can get massages, and it's a very nice, relaxing environment for the women to just solely focus on healing their body. But now that I have more mom friends, when I talk to them about it, they say that, yeah, like it's nice, but they notice when they go to these other mom meetings, and there's different rankings to it as well. They're not all the same. Some are government funded and they're gonna be lesser quality. But if you have the money, and sometimes they can go for like 10K, they are literally like a 5-star hotel. They're gonna have a little like conference room for maybe if your husband is also working, he can work there. It's like an at-home office. They can get like a spa treatment. Sometimes at these mom meetings, they'll ask them, hey, like, where did your husband send you for the post-birth care center? And then they'll kind of like compare each other, and if you were sent to a place where it's not too expensive, then you might kind of feel bad about it, and you're like, does my husband not love me enough? It doesn't just stop there. It's also like when it comes to hagwon, your children's educations, the more expensive, the better it is. And I feel like, and I'm being totally vulnerable here, that I am very weak-minded, and I am someone that easily is tempted. If I didn't have God, I would constantly compare myself to other people, because that's what I did before I became a Christian. I was constantly comparing my life to other people, constantly comparing and feeling bad about myself and wondering why I didn't have that. Or that's not the type of society I want to be in when I get older. And there's so many mom meetings as well. You can choose not to be a part of it, of course, but some moms, they would force themselves to go to these meetings, because often at these meetings, that's where really good like information is gonna be exchanged about teachers or classes. And I thought it was crazy because I was looking at different ratings the other day, and it said that Korean women have one of the highest scores of education. Like, a lot of Korean women are educated. Compared to that number, not a lot of Korean women in their like 40s have jobs. And I thought that was pretty interesting, because it kind of makes sense from just what I talked about previously, that I feel like a lot of companies don't provide that environment for women to contribute well into the company and work hard, but also be able to be there for their own family and be a mom. And something that I'm opening my eyes to more about now is that I think Korea, people always say, so convenient, so safe, such a good country to live in. And I agree, in my 20s, I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. But just like every other country, there are still things that I struggle with. But I do have to say, if ever I do end up getting married and having kids in Korea, even though right now I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that, you never know what's going to happen in life, right? But I think I could be happy. Obviously, there's so many factors that contribute to you being satisfied with your motherhood, like where you live, what kind of job you have, who you marry, that's a big one. From everything that I talked about previously, if you learn to prioritize things better in your life, you'd be so much happier here. I think a main one that I've learned so far, and it took me 25 years to learn this, is that once you stop putting your priorities in the outside factors, and you start prioritizing things that you can control, I think there is like a weight that lifts off of you. I know that a lot of these reasons that I mentioned are probably going to be very similar in a lot of other countries. So let me know what you think are some of the contributing factors as to why a lot of women are choosing not to have kids. And if you have kids here, what is your experience with it? I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Subscribe to my channel for more and follow me on my social media accounts if you want to keep up with me. And I will see you guys next time. Bye!